Today we're going to be talking about an essential piece of being a critical thinker, which is consequences. Critical thinking is consequential, and consequences is hiding right there in plain sight in the word critical. Because critical comes from the Greek word for crisis. So to be a critical thinker in Greek society, in antiquity, was to be able to make decisions in a crisis. To be critical was to be faced with a crisis and be able to make the right choice when faced with such an urgent crisis dilemma. You know what to do because you're a critical thinker. Look at that. Okay, I am not surprised that I pulled Jean-Paul Sartre because I think there are more quotes by him in my consequential knowledge of the people, by the people, for the people than anybody else. Jean-Paul Sartre was a French philosopher who dealt with consequences a lot. We'll talk more about it. Let me read the quote first. Okay. Our responsibility is much greater than we might have supposed because it involves all mankind. Oh, good. I'm glad we're starting with social responsibility. And now that's a big part of the consequences in the material world. Jean-Paul Sartre, as I was saying, he was a French philosopher who took from the Marxist tradition. Marx looked at history. He was the first one to look at history and say, we judge history by its material happenings. Whatever happened in the material world. We don't know what happened in people's abstracts. We don't know intentions so much. What we know for sure about history are the material consequences. And so this matters a lot. And in fact, Marx argued that it mattered the most, that what happens in the material world in history is what makes history. So human choice before that human choice is right before materialism, right? Every act we make materially shapes the world. And it's important to remember material, like, what does that mean? We have, what is that, an ingredient? It's a thing something's made of, correct. Material, when we talk about the material world, we're talking about matter. That comes from the scientific matter. So when I say material world, I'm not talking about like, I'm a material world, a material girl. Like, yes, that's like scientifically about matter, not about like material things, but yeah, things made of matter. Every move I make in this world with matter, I chose to. I made a choice. Not always. We don't always choose. Like sometimes I sneeze and I make a material difference. I changed the matter in the world. I didn't ask to. That was just part of what it means to be a human, is sometimes that's the tough thing. Sometimes there's nothing we can do about how we engage in the material world. Sometimes we sneeze. Like physical, instinctual, bodily functions, and when we're not being critical. I'd say if you let something slip that you didn't really mean to, it's because you weren't being intentional. You weren't being critical. And so that's why consequences are so important, is because, yeah, that happens way more than we'd like. Consequentially, we make an impression on this world, whether we choose to or not. Like, too bad. It's happening. You're making a difference in the world somehow. And these consequences matter. And so, to the best of our ability, we want to control as much of our material impact on the world as possible. We're never going to be perfect, but we can try. This is what being critical is all about, trying our best to have the most humanizing impact that we can. He's saying our responsibility is much greater than we might have supposed because it involves all mankind. So that's the thing. I mean, we hear about it with like the butterfly effect, right? A butterfly flaps its wings and it changes something halfway across the world. Yeah, that's kind of the deal. Whether you like it or not, humans are tied to our impact. And so everything we do, our responsibility is much greater than we might have supposed. Anything we do might send ripples out and change all of human history. That's what it means to be in part of this material world. He's hit on something really, really huge and really, really exciting and terrifying. To have power is wonderful and terrible. We can do anything. We also should be a little terrified of the consequences that we can make because they're so great. They can be great for good, but they can be terribly great as well. We often do not recognize the extent of our own power. We do not comprehend how truly powerful each of our material acts are. It's much greater than we might have supposed. Whether you like it or not, you're making actions in a material world. You can't escape it. You also can't escape history. Everything you do, imprisoned in history, like it or not, part of your condition. And I hate to break it to you, but you're also imprisoned in a social society. As humans, we're social. Hey, are we talking in a language? That's a social construct that was created by people that wasn't us. People outside of ourselves created that language, taught it to us, and now we engage in it because we're social beings. Everything we do has a social element. You'll never be free from society. You'll always have a relationship with it, just like you'll always have a relationship to the world of matter and the world of history. You will always have a relationship to the world of society. And that's what Jean-Paul Sartre is talking about. Everything you do involves all of mankind. And that is consequential, my friend. Everything we do impacts everyone else. And so because of that, it is so vital that we learn to be critical decision makers, that we really learn how to harness our impact in this material world, because it's part of history, it's part of society, and it's part of the constant transformation of this world. Everything we do makes it a little better, keeps it exactly the same, or makes it a little worse. Sorry, not sorry. You are, another quote that Jean-Paul Sartre has is that man is condemned to be free. And ain't that the truth? You're condemned to the material world, you're condemned to history, you're condemned to society. But instead of seeing it as a condemnation, which you totally could, it's a pretty pessimistic way of looking at it. And Jean-Paul Sartre is often, he's categorized with the existentialists. Existentialists have been seen as negative. Like, oh man, we exist. That's not really, when you look closer, that's not what they are, actually. But there is that first level. Like, we have to reckon with the fact that we are stuck. We are stuck in this material world. We are stuck in history, stuck in society, stuck with our consequences. Ooh, there's no escaping them. And so instead of, we could see it as a condemnation, as I said, or we could see this as an opportunity, right? We can see this as an opportunity. Okay, what a terrible consequence that everything I do has impact. I can let that terrify me, or I can let that empower me. Like, hell yeah, it does. Hell yeah, everything I do impacts history. Hell yeah, it impacts society. Hell yeah, it impacts all of mankind. Hell yeah, my responsibility is greater than I thought. Okay, which means I have critical work to do. I need to work on my decision making to make sure that each and every consequence that I evoke from my choices, from my abstract mind, and that leaves and enters this material world, boy, I need to make sure that I have thought that through.